Hello.
Testing, testing, one, two, three. Let me just adjust the dials. I don't normally have the bandwidth for such modern technology. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's 11 a.m.
Oh, right. I've had a whole day facing a screen, and you are going to be my last piece of screen radiation today, and I'm very excited to have this chat.
Yeah, thanks for bearing with me. I know it took a while to schedule, but I'm just now catching up.
Yeah, you've actually been wanted. It seems lots of people want to talk to you for some strange reason. Could it be something to do with AppDotNet finally kind of getting the leverage it may or may not deserve?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think I've ever had that many emails in my inbox ever. I think it got up to 2,000 or so, and if I count the support queue, I think that got up to 7 or 8,000. So this is more email than I've ever seen before.
And I guess that's obviously not emails of people saying, please let me in. That's interest.
It's a little bit of both. I mean, the ones in my inbox were pretty much all interest or questions or people trying to sell me things. There's a lot of that, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So just to be open about this, I am recording right now, hoping this will work. And I'd like to stick this on YouTube afterwards in order to maybe answer some questions. Should people not have gone to all the videos you've already done and all the conversations you've already had? So would you like to kind of give a bit of a synopsis, a background as to what AppDotNet is? Because there is still a bit of confusion to those who are passing by.
Sure. So AppDotNet is it's really me trying to create the product that I wish existed. The background story, just to start from the beginning, is I was the founder of a company called iMeme, which was a music sharing site. I don't know if it ever got big in the UK, so I don't know how familiar most of your fan base is with that one. But we actually got up to 26 million registered users, and it was one of the top 100 websites in the world. So it got quite large. I had 100 employees. It was popular all over the world in different ways, and I learned a lot from that. I learned how to build a large social site. It was one of the early successful social networks, and it was also ad supported. And so I learned a lot of lessons the hard way. Specifically, we kept making decisions that were bad for users and were bad for developers because we frankly needed to make more money. I mean, if you're running a company and you're choosing between, laying off your staff or having, bad things like that happening or redesigning the site to make people click on more ads, you're always going to redesign the site to make people click on more ads. And part of my overall criticism of some other sites out there is that I've been there, right? I'm not just criticizing as if I'm a better person. I know what it's like to be in a conference room and make those kinds of decisions. So that was a hugely influential experience on me. And I also went through the experience of being blocked by MySpace. iMeme widgets were very popular on MySpace. In fact, they were more popular than MySpace official widgets. And so the way we got so much traffic is that, and remember, this is a few years ago, so I know MySpace isn't cool anymore. But, all of a sudden you would start to see iMeme widgets all over MySpace. And it was crazy to see just the amount of traffic we were getting from it. And MySpace didn't like it. And one day they just erased every URL in their entire database. And all of the widgets were gone, and users freaked out, and it, obviously that affected our traffic patterns. And again, it was a hugely influential moment for me of watching what I would consider a platform partner decide that we were growing too fast, or that they didn't like the business we were building, or they felt it was competitive, and to just systematically block us. So again, this was, that was in TechCrunch. I link to it sometimes on app.net, but that was hugely influential to me. So this was what I did during my 20s, and it's on my Wikipedia page, and anyone that cares about iMeme can read about it. But I learned a lot of good things, the good way and the bad way. And the company ended up being sold to MySpace, and MySpace immediately shut it down. So if you try to go to imeme.com right now, it just redirects to MySpace, and the whole thing, it was kind of a drag.
Yeah.
So more recently, this AppDotNet is part of my second company, and the name of the company is actually Mixed Media Labs. And there's a few different things we built as part of Mixed Media Labs. The first thing we built was a mobile photo sharing service, which was doing mobile photo sharing before it was cool. It was a site called Pickleys, and PickPlease predated Instagram and Path and all those other sites by 6 or 7 months. So it's an example of seeing a market opportunity and attacking it. And we didn't win that space. Obviously, other folks won that one. But it's I think we had pretty good timing, and we learned a lot about shipping apps, and got more experience running a social site. And again, it had the same problem of it was ad supported. And so even though we got a couple million users using it, we couldn't keep the thing going. The economics didn't work. To run an ad-supported site, you need hundreds of millions of users using it constantly to actually have a real business. So after that, we started working on the first instantiation of AppDotNet. And the point of AppDotNet was to help app developers market and promote their mobile apps. Mm-hmm. So for the past year, we've been doing nothing but helping third-party developers that are building Android and iPhone apps better serve their customers, and have been totally focused on working with developers and been very sensitive to them. Okay, as part of that, we've been building more and more tools on top of Facebook, and we built some Facebook promotions and did very deep integration with Facebook. And as part of this, we spent more and more and more time with the Facebook developer relations team, and built all these things on top of Open Graph. And in fact, I was booked to speak at Airbnb originally. That's a tech company. I was booked to do a tech talk as an expert on the Facebook platform, right? So
right. Okay.
we become experts on the Facebook platform. And as I've talked about in my blog, we spent 9 months working on this really complicated, ambitious Facebook thing that basically would let you see what mobile apps your friends are using and discover them and do all these nifty things. And we got hit with platform risk, and we were told by Facebook that we should either sell the company to them or they were going to be competing with us. And something snapped. Something broke in my head that was like, oh my God, like, here we go again. What's the point of building Facebook apps anymore? Yeah. And we built on Twitter. iMeme was built on top of. We had a lot of Twitter integration, and we built on top of Twitter as well for PickPlease. And I stopped building on Twitter a year ago I took Michael Sippy's advice and stopped building on Twitter myself, even though I used it as a user.
Yeah.
And I realized that it was clear there was no good choice to be an app developer, to build a real business on top of these social platforms. And in fact, that Twitter and Facebook weren't social platforms at all. They were really these ad-supported things that changed the rules whenever they wanted. And that as an app developer, I've just been dying in the desert of thirst, waiting for something to build on top of, so I could please users. And to watch all the moves being made by these companies, which are against the interests of users to make money, right? Like, I have a pretty good idea of how to monetize. And if you do the math, for Facebook to hit their numbers and for Twitter to hit their numbers, they're going to have to do some pretty effed up stuff. Yeah. Right? That's a fact.
Which they've probably started to do in a lot of people's eyes.
Sure. I think that has barely begun. I think maybe, I hope I'm wrong, but I think that we're going to see even more exciting new UI changes from the perspective.
You touched upon how cash flow seems to be the one thing that gets everybody into trouble here. And when I paid my $50 to get access as a non-developer, I was definitely one of the minority of the ones that went in there initially, because everybody seemed to want to develop. It was like a Wild West camp turning into a town overnight. Suddenly there was a huge list of things that had already been created by people that obviously did not sleep. And I felt that $50 was supporting something more than actually paying for entry. And I rationalized it in my head that, well, only last year I was paying $50 a month for a telephone contract that I didn't make phone calls on. So this was just another communication tool that's costing me $50 a year for the first year. But I don't know. Part of me thought, I've got a feeling this is going to take off. And when that does, the financial investment, shall we say, from people who want to be a part of it's going to be a whole different model. In my head, what are you thinking now? Because when I asked for a couple of questions from people on AppDotNet, somebody actually said, who was it? It was Bardal unfairly said something like, "The attitude in the UK seems to be that ADN is a con to get $50 out of people." Can he explain his motives for starting ADN and what future pricing could be to encourage inclusivity? And you've answered this a few times. Now, you've already explained what your motives are for starting. And I must admit, most of the people I converse with on App.net are British, and I haven't had these conversations, but on Twitter, I have had these conversations. So,
Sure.
the $50 question here: how long? Why? If? Will it be sliding? How about
So a couple
exclusivity?
things. So one, yeah, it's definitely not a con because usually cons don't deliver software. And, a lot of the skepticism we had during the join.app.net period was, oh yeah, this will never ship. This is vaporware. These guys are schmucks. And, when we ship the alpha, we're shipping code and we ship code every day.
Mhm.
Hopefully, perhaps people will say this isn't worth it or there's other criticisms you can make. But at the end of the day, we're delivering software as a service, and it to use the Britishism, it does what it says on the tin, right?
Yeah.
It's we weren't promising to be all things to all people. We were promising a real-time social feed. We were promising that you own your data, and our terms of service is live, and we're iterate on it, but it reflects the core values. So we did our best to set expectations. And in terms of the pricing thing, look, having shipped a lot of software before, the last thing we want is for everyone to sign up immediately, because a lot of people are going to be very disappointed, right? Like, think about the first day of the alpha. It was buggy. We didn't have delete implemented. I don't know if you got in early enough, but there was no way to delete a post for the first few days.
Yeah.
So if you said something wrong, it was, just stuck.
But mostly it was just, this is a test, this is a test. And to be honest, coders speak, and when coders speak to each other, I'm fascinated by people. So for me, the most inane update interests me. When it's a language I haven't necessarily, been party to before, coders talking to one another, fleshing things out, collaborating in the open timeline, it did remind me of the very, very early days of Twitter. And for me, a camaraderie-ship was born, forgetting my words. And I do feel, everybody was very proud about their number of entry, thinking and feeling that as pioneers, they were building on something that immediately felt like it was going to have a future. So as far as value goes, I know at least quite a few thousand of the people already in there. I'm definitely feeling that they get that. And I have stopped telling people to join, not because I don't want them there because I'm enjoying myself too much, not because I think they'll be disappointed, but because I think that if somebody doesn't necessarily understand what this is just yet, they need to have it leached to them through the conversations that are going to occur in other channels, when maybe App.net becomes potentially that lifeboat, when the walls start closing in on some of the spaces that they're feeling blindly comforted in, I think.
I think you're exactly right. And so from wearing my community architect hat, I don't want something that all of a sudden 100,000 people sign up for, and they're like, "Oh, this sucks. This is crap. This doesn't. There's not even an iPhone app in the App Store. Or there's not, there's not even this. Or there's not even that." Like, this is intentionally phrased in a very nerdy way, like the original Join campaign, so that you kind of had to know what it was to sign up for it, and that the last thing I want is to have disappointed people sign up and be like, "Oh, I want money back. This is stupid," right? So we don't want to oversell. Part of what I've been trying to do is not promise things that we can't deliver. And from my perspective, everything we promised is something that is doable. And I agree with your mentality that as more and more value is created, you can show people the value rather than telling them the value. And that as more and more apps are released, or people see interesting conversations happen, or they hear about it from a friend, that's the way you're going to get really amazing new entry and sign up, rather than us just blasting everyone to sign up immediately. And that's, go ahead.
Yeah, I use the pub analogy quite a lot, and I wrote a blog post saying that social networks aren't free, trying to remind people the fact that they are paying quite often with their identity and with their privacy. And one of the first things installed on App.net was a, withdraw your data right now kind of button. For me, I liken it to going to a very, very noisy bar on normal places and having to filter the conversation with the person standing directly next to me from the chaos that's around. And And app.net for the time being, and maybe it will continue to be like that when pockets and apps enable you to nicheify your conversations in certain groups. For me, it was like going to a lovely little country pub where there's a bunch of geeks hanging out every night, and every bit of the conversation was interesting to you. And I know places get noisy. How many people could you handle right now if there was a search? How scalable is app.net right now? And do you worry about too many people getting interested too quickly?
I'm more worried about the community falling apart. So again, from a technical perspective, if 100,000 people signed up today, I don't think there would be a problem. I think we could handle that. Knock on wood. But I think it would totally screw up the community. And one of the reasons you want something to grow in a linear fashion or semi-linear fashion is that you have the concept of social norms. You have training each other. Like if everyone signed up on the same day, it would just be hello world and people saying, "What do I do here? I'm bored. What do you?"
Yeah.
You see it in global timeline. There's when new people come on, there's the same 5 questions they ask.
Yeah.
Right. And that's cool. Everyone's a newbie once.
Yeah.
But if you just dumped 100,000 people on this thing, it would lose a lot of cultural context.
Yeah.
And I think that would be the biggest risk of too quick of growth, is that there would be no more notion of what it is that you're signing up for.
Yeah.
Anyway. The best communities kind of have a nice growth where people are training each other and there's cultural context for what it is, and that, if you have 100,000 people, adding 10,000 people isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
But it's almost like a percentage change over time. And I think that's the biggest risk.
Are real names being forced in more and more places now because of advertising? Will you ever consider pushing? I mean, I got kicked off Facebook for not using my real name. I got banned from Google Plus a year ago this month, although I did go back in under duress for not using my real name. Where do you stand on things like that?
It's in the TOS. We're fine with pseudonyms. We're fine with whatever. I mean, the TOS basically says, hey, please have real billing information. Don't use phony credit cards. Mm-hmm. But if you have real billing information, we don't care, who you are or who you purport to be. And if it's a parody, say you're a parody, and don't be abusive and follow the TOS. But, a lot of the real name stuff has to do with advertising, right? How do you advertise against a fake person? It's like advertisers don't want to advertise to phony people.
Yeah.
So I think it's implicit in the business model that we don't, it's like an internet connection or a phone number. If you pay for your cell phone plan, you can say basically whatever you want on the phone to other people, as long as you're not breaking laws, and as long as your check clears every month, then there's not a problem.
So the download my data button, if I was to click that, would I get every slither of information that you hold on me? Because I know that Facebook, and there's been a couple of cases where somebody's applied for the paper copy and compared to the digital copy, and there's been 2 different sets of data.
Yeah, I mean, you should try it out. A writer for O'Reilly, Ed Dumhill, wrote a post. I could find a link to it where he did an export of his data and did an analysis about what was in it and what wasn't in it. And I can send you a link, but he was quite pleased to see that it was as exhaustive as he was hoping that it was, and he considered that a big deal.
And if I deleted my account, would it be completely deleted, gone? Or does it still sit there like it? Somebody said again, servers of Facebook, they're actually not designed to delete anything.
I mean, it's in the terms of service, and we're deleting all web server logs after 2 weeks, and you can go read the drafts up there. And in terms of account management, in this kind of business, we want real delete, because having that stuff laying around is just a liability, honestly, from a legal perspective. So, we gain nothing from kind of deleting an account. Facebook does, because what happens with Facebook, knowing the inside story, is that people constantly delete their accounts and then reactivate them, right? If you work at Facebook and you look at the data, the reason I'm not trying to justify their behavior, but the reason I think they do it that way is they constantly are bombarded with teenagers deleting their accounts and then changing their mind and then getting angry that they can't just get
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
It's like when you're writing software, you always have to implement undo.
yeah,
Like even though users may not realize they want undo,
yeah.
people actually really want undo. So I'm not all trying to justify Facebook. I imagine that if I worked there, I'd be constantly flummoxed with, well, I know I deleted my account, but really, like, can I have all my photos back? I didn't save. So, so we're going to implement, real delete. We haven't real delete. The small number of people that have requested we delete their accounts are really deleted, and it's as deleted could be. So I know this is kind of a tangent. I can only imagine what it's like to run the support queue at Facebook and what kind of crazy stuff people ask for.
Yeah. And and if they were to say your data's in stasis for a while, and would be auto deleted in a month or something, people probably still wouldn't take that. So,
Yeah.
what concerns you with Google and Facebook? Not necessarily keeping you awake at night, but has made you think, right, I will not, and Twitter as well, I am not going to make the same mistake here.
I mean, I think the business model thing is a big part of it because, again, going through my prior experiences, it's always trying to hit your numbers that makes you crazy.
Yeah.
Right? And especially if you raise a whole lot of money, you're under the gun to your employees and to your stakeholders to hit your numbers. And, the public markets are valuing Facebook in such a way that clearly they need to hit their numbers. And if you're an employer and you're watching your stock, your all net worth is underwater because you're not hitting your stock, you're not hitting your numbers, and the stock market's dinging you. It makes people, when you have that kind of financial incentive staring you in the face, you get pretty aggressive. And so to me, the less it's just financial motivations, and if you can set the right priorities for what you're compensated for and what your success metrics are, that's what it all boils down to. And I don't know if you've ever read about this, but I read somewhere that Google is actually tying everyone's bonuses to the success of Google Plus across the company. I should try to find a link to that.
Wow.
But I've heard about this in the Valley. Even if you don't work on Google Plus, there's some amount of your bonus that's tied to using Google Plus because they don't want employees to not use it. They want to make sure every employee uses it a lot.
Yeah.
Encourages their friends to use it, and so they're compensated to push Google Plus. So of course that's going to, there could be unintended consequences of that financial motivation.
No, definitely. Your audio is breaking up a little bit because I think more than 6 people in my village are now on the internet. It's internet time for my village. So I'm going to wrap up in a moment. Something just popped into my head that I wanted to ask you. Okay, so, we're all made of stories. The world is made of stories. Stories play a massive part in all of this. There'll be incredible apps built off the back of AppDotNet that plug in, that enable storytelling in its finest form. My grandmother, I got her on Twitter a few years ago, at 85, 86 years old, and people that asked her questions unlocked episodes of her life I had no idea about. I didn't realize she smuggled messages past the Germans in the war in her bicycle pump, and it ended up becoming a radio show. And if she'd had to pay to be a part of Twitter, I wouldn't have known any of that. I would never probably have found out any of that. And I do wonder, if somebody gave me a telephone and said, this telephone's a bargain, you're going to get so much value out of this, but you can only speak to men, or you can only speak to people in this geographical location. How are you going to overcome this? We're back to the inclusivity.
So look, a couple of points on that. One, this is one of the main reasons I don't consider this a true replacement for Twitter. If you look at my original blog post announcing this, I classified the ad-supported business as a monoculture, meaning everyone has the same business model, but part of monoculture is that we're trying to create an alternative business model in the space, but we don't want a monoculture of everyone with our business model either. That's not good. That's not healthy for an ecosystem. I think you want both to exist. And so I hope and anticipate that Twitter and Facebook will be around, or some version of them or competitors will be around indefinitely. and they will serve a need, again, similar to like free television versus pay television, okay? Um, and it could be that what app.net gets used for is radically different, and the kinds of applications that are built are radically different. That's clearly the case in the short term, and that's
there's certainly a catch-22 here, though, because the more app.net nurtures this kind of non-advertised space, the more it feels like normal reality for people to share stories. The one reason why Cowbird is such an incredible storytelling platform is because there are no adverts. The reason why the National Geographic did its piece on the Native American Indians and it just was taken, it just took it by storm, was because you weren't going to be reading this heartfelt, honest, open and transparent story and then be advertised some trite idiocy next to it. The more people realize what Twitter might become, the more people realize what Google is doing right now and how Facebook works, the more they're going to levitate to the spaces. And for me, I guess, I don't know, I want to see it succeed in the way that other storytelling platforms have an innate, I don't want to say freemium premium because that conversation's happened many times, but how open are you? How fixed in stone now is the business model?
So what I would say about that is, what is fixed in stone is that we, the company, will not sell advertising. I don't want to ever have a person with the word advertising in their title that works here. If they did, then I failed. I'm totally serious about that. We did it. Something tragic, and that will not happen.
Yeah.
In terms of the actual price, I do think that will change, and I expect it to drop with scale. Remember, I did all key off of 10,000 users in all the blogs I've written about, and there are economies of scale that we get larger and larger and larger that it does make sense to try a lower price, especially if there's a whole lot of software built for the thing, right? So if there's a bunch of great iPhone apps and Android apps and desktop games and Windows apps and browser plugins, and there's this whole like vibrant ecosystem, then I think it would make a ton of sense for us to experiment with price drops. The other thing about that is I've talked about third-party rev share, and we're going to try to do experiments so that extra profits or margin that are generated by the company get paid out to developers. And I'm going to do a draft of this, but one of the reasons to not just follow the Marco Ament advice of just dramatically dropping the price at scale is that if you look at things like the App Store or eBay or what have you, the way the ecosystem keeps going is that the money is flowing through to the people creating value and creating software, and they're incentivized to maintain it. And a lot of issues with the Sparrow problem. Are you familiar with that? But there's a lot of iPhone apps that and because they never make enough money. And so if we can use the revenue that we're making at scale and use that as a way to support third-party developers that are adding value to the platform, which increases the value of users, then good. I mean, I would put the iPhone. Every app that's built makes the iPhone more attractive to an end user, right? Phone's the same, but every time someone builds a new app, the conceptual value of an iPhone goes up. And so Apple shipped the iPhone and it cost $500 or whatever it cost. I don't know what it cost in the UK. And there were no apps in the App Store. There was no apps when they launched. And so early adopters adopted it. But every year, every day, there's more and more of a vibrant ecosystem around the iPhone to where now it's like, I would argue that it's a pretty good deal because of apps, right? If there are no apps, the iPhone is not a great value.
No, exactly.
So getting to we're going to experiment with either not dramatically lowering the price, but taking the margins we get and rev sharing it back out to devs, and that's a whole long conversation that will be hotly debated, I'm sure. But conceptually speaking, I would love to see that happen because it will create more great apps that users want, right? You get in this great virtuous cycle. It's like inverted Twitter. Twitter wants to call the third-party devs because they're losing money, right? Twitter uses Tweetbot. Right? Well, how does Twitter benefit from Tweetbot? They don't. They want everyone to switch to the official Twitter app, right? So this is a version of that of the more apps that are built, the more money we make, and the more money we make, the more we rev share out, and the more value becomes for end users. So if for whatever reason that doesn't work brilliantly, or we learn something, or what have you, then it makes sense to start to lower to lower our core price because at economies of scale, running this kind of service gets way cheaper when we have 500,000, 1 million paying users.
Yeah.
Clearly, profits will be generated that would let us be able to drop prices and run the infrastructure.
So should nobody sign up from today onwards? How long could App.net survive?
2 years or so. It depends on decisions I make about burn.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Long time.
That's good. That's good to know that you've got 2 years is a long time in social technology.
Right. And people are signing up every day. Right.
Yeah,
it's not hundreds of people, but there's people that sign up every day, and you see them in the global feed, and they say "Hello World," and that's fantastic, right? They've decided that it's worth it for them to sign up now.
I'm getting addicted to whenever I see a "Hello World," quickly going to the person and seeing what number they are to see how many people are in. It's kind of quite nice. A couple of questions popped up a minute ago. One from iag.me on app.net. Will RSS feeds be a priority? And then they said so it will be a priority.
About this, if you look on my feed from last night, someone was asking about it.
Cool.
We're going to try to ship really basic user profile RSS feeds by Friday.
Brilliant.
So, let's just say in the next few days.
It's probably about the same time that this video would hit YouTube, judging by my current bandwidth. So apologise if I've uploaded this and the sound is pants, but it's been fascinating. You really feel like you've obviously got your teeth into this and are not letting go. And is this now your only project? Is this your one focus?
This is the best thing I've ever worked on, right? From what it's like on this side of the screen, I've shipped a lot of code, I've shipped a lot of software over the years, and only one other time in my entire career have I put something out and watched it. It's like a kite where the wind just takes it, where I don't have to push it, where it runs on its own. And the previous time was at iMeme when we shipped playlists. We were the first site to let you create playlists and embed Flash players, right? So we take for granted everyone does that now on SoundCloud and whatnot, but we were the first site to create embeddable Flash players where you add songs to a playlist. And this was like 2004.
Whoa.
And so we shipped code to do that at like 10 p.m. at night, and it was me and Brian was working there, my co-founder at App.net, and we put it out, we watched the logs, and the second we put it out, people started using it. I didn't tell anyone, I didn't IM anyone, I didn't announce it, we didn't do anything, it just took off. And so with App.net, I mean, I've just been blogging and doing my thing, and from this side of the screen, we're not doing anything differently than we've been doing the past 2 or 3 years. But oh my God, the world is treating it in a totally different way.
Yeah.
And you can't replicate that. You can't buy that. You can't, the list of third-party app developers, they created the wiki page, they self-organized, people are doing all this. And a lot of we're along for the ride along with you and everybody else.
Yeah.
The server's running and to keep the business running and to do what we got to do. But
so the secret sauce, what's the secret sauce that Diaspora needed or needs even?
I mean, it's a good question. I think it comes down to the difference between a code drop and a service. So they built something that was a code drop, and I compared it to a report. It's like between, okay, here's an Ubuntu CD, go build a service versus Amazon Web Services. And I don't think that in a negative way. I mean, certainly a lot of people don't want to use Amazon Web Services, and it's not the right thing for everybody, right? Yeah. So when you'd rather have an Ubuntu CD than AWS.
Yeah.
But the fact is, thinking that every end user is going to be installing their own server and running their own node, and there's a whole lot of complexity to run something that people actually use. And at the end of the day, I felt wanted a service, and you want something that it does what it says on the tin and just works, and you can sign up for it. And here's the App Store, and we've actually constrained the problem a great deal. We've simplified. Again, people thought that AppDotNet was crazy, but we never promised anything we couldn't do, right? Like we made this achievable, not easy, but achievable. And I think a lot of the projects have promised things that I'm not sure anyone, could ever actually succeed on, of having everyone running their own servers and talking to each other, and that's technically very difficult. So I think that's
Totally agree. Yeah. Well, here am I in my shed at the bottom of my garden in England, still as excited today as I was the first day I signed up for App.net, and it's great to see your passion. And I really, honestly wish you all the best, and I hope I can be a part of the journey from now on as it grows into something alternative, and that's the key for me.
That's what's fun is we don't know what it'll be. Like part of this excitement, and one of the reasons I think Twitter didn't take this route is that you're letting go of control. Like if we're operating the API, we don't really know what people are going to build on top of it, and it takes a certain amount of like, love chaos or something to be willing to let the market decide what it's actually going to be. And so, like I said earlier, we're along for the ride, and so I appreciate it. And you've been a great user, and this is part of what's been fun is all these people are coming out of the woodwork, strangers, and helping and supporting, and this is how the service gets defined and the community gets defined is how people choose to define. So.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, I'll no doubt see you in the feeds and look forward to RSS and all the other surprises just around the corner. And thanks very much for taking the time to have a chat.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate the time as well.
Cheers.
Okay. Bye.